So I bought Zoroark. I know what you might be thinking. This guy made a video saying how this monetization practice is horrible. Some people might even think that I advocated my viewers to not purchase it, and that's completely not true. I believe you should do what you want to do with your money. For me, I look at this more as a business expense, and also I wanted to give you guys the opportunity to enjoy some content around Zoroark without having to actually buy it. I make educational content, and I figured it'd be a good call for me. We'll talk more about Zoroark and what I think about it towards the end of the video. I want to spend this time going over the patch. I absolutely love the patch. I think they did an amazing job with some of the nerfs on the overtuned characters. They brought some characters to life that just were completely underutilized and unappreciated by the community. So let's go to the patch notes, and I have a commitment to you guys. We're going to spend no more than a single minute per Pokemon. I want to keep this short and concise. If you hear this, that means we've gone too long and we didn't move on to the next Pokemon. All right, cool. Let's get started. So we've got Mr. Mime. Now with Mr. Mime, what they've done is they've lowered the damage on Confusion, but exclusively for your power stunned Confusion. If you do a light screen Confusion or a barrier Confusion, the damage remains the same, and I love that they made this distinction. So technically, this was a power swap nerf, not really a Confusion nerf, and that's exactly what we needed. I was afraid that they would nerf Confusion and they would make an impact on the barrier build, which is just completely unnecessary. Right now, I would go barrier Confusion. It's my favorite build. I've loved that. Focus Band, special attack specs, energy amp still looks good. Mr. Mime's Unite move was nerfed, but it still does a reasonable amount of damage. It doesn't seem like it was nerfed too heavily. I still think this Pokemon is going to be absolutely great. And we've also got, he's still got his boosted autos available to him. Power Swap Confusion is still going to be a fine build to play if you want to play it. Overall, this Pokemon's been nerfed. It's still really good. I'm a big fan. And there's our bell. We got to move on to Gengar now. Gengar is a Pokemon that doesn't get a lot of love in the competitive scene. We've seen a couple teams utilize him, whether they've got a one-trick on their team or a comp centered around Gengar. But we got some pretty heavy nerfs, and I think this is due to, in an uncoordinated environment where you can't have teammates lock down the Gengar and take him down, Gengar has this ability to completely 1v5. You've seen clips of people popping up with Dream Eater. You've been in games where you get sludge bombed and then you're just hexed over and over and over again, and obviously it's no fun. So good nerfs around the board. I still think this Pokemon is going to be difficult to deal with. Speedsters in general have a tough time being balanced in this game, but I think this brings it more in line with some other solo queue Pokemon. Overall, a good change, and I'm happy to see it. Serena, we got some Trop Kick nerfs. This came out of nowhere, in my opinion. Like, I feel like Serena had been strong for a while. It received some nerfs in the past. The meta kind of shifted. Other Pokemon got buffed. And Serena, to me at least, felt like it was in a pretty good spot. It was not too strong, not too weak, maybe on the side of a little bit too strong. But overall, they still got a Trop Kick nerf. Trop Kick was a ridiculous move. Some people are saying that this is a very significant nerf to Serena. I think this just makes it so Grassy Glide and Trop Kick are a little bit more even to pick. Also on Serena, you can use it on hindrance resistance targets now, which you weren't able to do before, but you can't do it on Charizard anymore. So I imagine this is going to change every patch. Keep an eye out for this. Who knows what that actually means. Absol, another Pokemon, you know, I probably wasn't expecting them to nerf. I felt like Absol was in an okay spot. Again, another Pokemon that probably was doing a lot more damage in uncoordinated environments, but even in 5 steps, this Pokemon has notoriously been strong over the last couple months. Definitely no secret to that. The Sucker Punch nerf, the range decrease is definitely not great, but it was a really good chasing tool. I think a lot of people are going to feel this attack nerf. 30 attack at level 1 is the equivalent of almost an entire level item. But these stat changes might have been deserving. Also, whenever Absol did take out a target with a crit, it was pretty heavily overkilling someone. So I'm not sure in practice what this change is actually going to do. Aegislash, this is a Pokemon that did need a nerf, and this is a Pokemon I didn't expect the devs to actually touch. For whatever reason, I thought They thought this Pokemon was in a good spot, even though almost everyone in the community understood this Pokemon to be absolutely busted. Though this Pokemon did keep some of the meta in check. You know, it was a way to access backline characters. It was a way to slow down the jungler to go for invades. It overall was just overtuned. It did too many things, and this Pokemon is still good. Aegislash means I would not be worried about playing this Pokemon. This Pokemon has been very strong for very long, and it's going to have a future from here as well. What they did was they lowered the Shadow Sneak, increased the Shadow Sneak cooldown, and they also made it so you get your second round of moves at level 3. So invading might be a little bit tough, but for lane Aegislash players in solo queue, you're not going to feel the nerfs that much. And the Sacred Sword nerf was probably deserved. Iron Defense, yes, it's for a second, and this is going to make a second longer. It'll make your early game a little bit harder, but that's okay. Okay, moving on to Mew. Mew is the one that everyone's been waiting for. I was waiting for. I could not stand this Pokemon, and they did some good jobs with the nerfs. Let's start with Solar Beam. Significant damage reduction on the per level scaling and the base, which makes it so that with your light screen boost as well being nerfed, in the early game, Mew doesn't just one-shot neutral Pokemon, and other Pokemon actually have the ability to contest last hit. So that's going to feel good. It still does a ridiculous amount of damage, don't get me wrong. It's still going to be a very, very good early game Pokemon, but it's been neutered a little bit. This is the biggest nerf. If you didn't know, Solar Beam Plus provided additional cooldown reduction when you hit Pokemon. This is why in teamfights you'd see beam after beam after beam. You can no longer do that as effectively. Surf damage being nerfed, agility, movement speed being gutted, which is we needed this, and the damage on the Unite being nerfed as well. This Pokemon's still going to be great. My minute timer's running out. We got to move on to Trevenant, but good changes from you. Trevenant changes, pretty irrelevant. Woodhammer got buffed. If you're playing Woodhammer before the patch, you're probably trolling. If you're doing it now, most people are going to think you're doing it to test out the new patch. The problem with this move, and this move does look a lot better now. The stun duration, especially when you're below half, being 1.5 seconds is absolutely insane. We might see it picked a little bit. Maybe someone wants to try it out and make a dedicated Woodhammer build. Try figuring out that might be good. I might try that myself if anyone's interested. But the problem with this move, what it used to be and what it still is that it's not Curse. Curse gives you a cooldown reset. It does an insane amount of damage. Cooldown reset means that you get to use Horn Leech again, and Horn Leech is the main way you CC people on this Pokemon. Horn Leech is, I mean, Curse is also just great at defending goals. So cool for them to bring an unused move back into the meta a little bit, or into the meta at all. Paint Split changes probably would help, but it's not enough. Moving on to Venusaur. Now, this is probably the biggest winner of the patch. One that I probably underestimated when I first looked at the stat changes. Probably because I didn't realize actually how much defense this Venusaur was gaining. Let's just look at a random level throughout the game, maybe level 9 when you're fully evolved. Venusaur is getting almost an extra 100 HP for free, for no good reason. But let's see, almost an extra 30 defense and 20 special defense. That's the equivalent of having a passive focus band on for Venusaur, just for absolutely free. On top of that, Petal Dance got a full second off its cooldown, and a damage buff, a pretty significant damage buff. 4% extra on the ratio that the 16 ticks is pretty significant. This is probably the best Pokemon in the game if you're a duo queue player and you have a support partner with you. I've seen most average gameplay Venusaurs do over 100k damage, so abuse this Pokemon while you can. It's really, really good. Giga Drain Petal Dance build, by the way. Hoopa, probably my favorite Pokemon design in the entire game. I was a Hoopa main all throughout the previous competitive season. From the day Hoopa launched to pretty much the day the competitive scene ended for me. I played Hoopa, a big fan of this Pokemon, decently happy with these changes. The first set of Hyperspace Hole buffs, these were nerfs that happened a while ago and they're kind of just being reverted. Trick getting a cooldown buff, which is great. More movement speed on the shield. More duration on the shield duration got decreased. This is probably a bit of a nerf. Overall, I think these changes are good for Hoopa. I don't think it changes where Hoopa lies in terms of its playability, but it definitely nudges it in the right direction. This Pokemon probably needs a little bit more help if we want to see it move into the competitive scene again. And in the solo queue scene, it does not seem viable anymore. Okay, Dodrio. This is a Pokemon that when it launched, everyone thought it sucked. Lutano, I want to give credit for single-handedly making this Pokemon meta and showing everyone that this Pokemon has viability. Probably other people would have done it too. But my teammate Lutano, we won some tournaments with this Pokemon. He, day one, believed in Tri-Kick, and he was absolutely right. What makes Tri-Kick broken is that you get an insane amount of HP when you go for the healing, and when you go for your auto attacks after Tri-Attack, and you just sustain throughout the map on a Pokemon that's so fast is too incredibly powerful. Drill Peck buffs, Jump Kick buffs, pretty irrelevant. Tri-Attack is the way to go. It's still a strong Pokemon. It's been nerfed a little bit. The nerfs were deserved. But I don't think this changes anything in terms of where this Pokemon is placed. You're still going to go around the map, killing everyone, never dying. Very good. Now, Eldegoss, winner number 2 of this patch, and my original main in Season 1, the character I have the most games played on to this day. Right before the patch dropped, I had a feeling that this Pokemon was just, you know, it was right there in terms of viability. And then with this buff now, I think this moves it up. It's a solid 8-tier Pokemon. The biggest, the most important buff is that its boosted autos have a much stronger slow now. Once you get someone locked down in the middle of the lane and you're chasing them down, just constantly throwing your autos at them, it really feels like you just have a built-in red buff now. So as always, Muscle Band absolutely required on this character. I think the go-to standard build should be Leaf Tornado, Cotton Guard, or Leaf Tornado, Cotton Spore, but with the Pollen Puff buffs, I think this moveset is also viable, and it truly feels like most of the moves are viable. Maybe in different combinations you'd have to experiment. The Unite move buff as well. Cool. Crustle. Now this is a Pokemon probably a lot of people are still going to overlook. Crustle gets memed on a lot. Crustle is a meme Pokemon of Pokemon Unite at this point. It's never been incredibly meta. It's had its, you know, waves of when it could crit really hard and crit emblems were a lot stronger. It's been bugged, and when it was bugged, it was definitely really good. But now it's in a weird spot. Like, what is this character meant to be? For a while, it's just been suffering identity crisis of being a worse Greedent. But with these Rock Tomb changes, I played a lot of Rock Tomb, guys, and I think Rock Tomb is so good this patch. A 60% slow starting at level 4 and an 80% slow at level 11, coupled with the fact that, you know, your Stealth Rocks is a lower cooldown. I've got a really interesting build. Keep an eye out on my YouTube channel. I'm going to definitely make a video on this Pokemon, but I think it's the ultimate goal defender now. Combine Rock Tomb with Stealth Rock, no one can siege down your goals. Thea Skyruin's got a lot of chokes to abuse Rock Tomb with. That's my time. We got to move on to Garchomp. Garchomp got some good stat changes across the board. Attack buffs for Garchomp go a long way. Pokemon builds up its attack speed. Its moves, obviously, its ratios are depending on attack, so it's a really good place to target this Pokemon. 20 attack throughout the across every level. Almost pretty much a level 20 attack item. Some level 30 items granted for free. Very good change. Dragon Claw got some minor buffs as well, both with its combo with Dragon Rush, which you should always just combo the dragon moves, and its damage on across all levels. You can go double dragon move. My go-to build, which I made a video saying that this is the worst moveset, honestly it feels kind of good, is both ground moves with potion, tank emblems, and just being this like pseudo tank bruiser Pokemon that's hard to bring down. I think he has one of the most underrated Unite moves in the game, and thanks to these attack changes, they just got better. Cool. Clefable changes. We're not going to spend a lot of time on Clefable. Draining Kiss, follow me. This build, I tried it out. It feels a lot better for solo queue. You can run Focus Band, special attack specs, and either Shell Bell, Energy Amp, or Buddy Barrier, whatever you want. And go around and just be a solo carry if you want. Draining Kiss is not a good ability if you want to save your teammates. It's very good at keeping yourself alive as long as you don't have teammates nearby you. Follow me, pretty big buff, a significant cooldown reduction, bigger shield. The main thing around Clefable is some of the bug fixes. Clefable is no longer a hard counter to Charizard, so if you want to talk about it, Charizard might be one of the biggest winners of this patch, because Clefable's gravity just completely neutered Charizard's ability to use basic attacks, even in its Unite move. But yeah, not much to talk about Clefable here. Greninja. Again, Smokescreen Surf is probably the build that you're used to seeing, but we saw some buffs to its underutilized moveset, that being Water Shuriken. I think it no longer does it so that you throw a random amount of shurikens or a range of shurikens. You always throw 4 and not 5. Probably helps with its consistency a little bit. Damage buffs don't seem too significant. Greninja does have a very good amount of attack, so small changes in its ratio actually do end up being a big big change. I think this Pokemon might be a little bit playable. With Mew in its current state, I still think Mew probably one-shots Greninja whenever it wants throughout the game, but we'll have to see how that works out. If you're a Water Shuriken player, good day for you for sure. Finally, we've got Charizard, some bug fixes, allows it to use on hindrance resistant targets, but you can't, I don't know what the interaction with Charizard's Unite is, similar to Serena and I guess Slowbro as well. These things are probably going to be changing. I think the Slowbro one is probably the most notable one. Slowbro Slow Beam should go through everything in the game, and previously it wasn't, maybe? I'm not too sure. This hindrance resistance mechanic has got to get fleshed out a little bit more. They've got to figure out what they're trying to do with it. I have no idea what their plan is. Cool. Let's move on to our final minute. We're going to talk about Zoroark. This Pokemon is incredibly strong. I think it's a good laner. I think it can jungle. It's pretty easy to stack on this Pokemon. The build that I think should be your go-to, at least while me and the rest of the community are figuring out what's good on this Pokemon, is probably Night Slash coupled with either Shadow, Claw, or Cut. Night Slash, if you haven't played this Pokemon, I would definitely recommend going into practice mode before you even buy this. Go into try mode and get a feel for how Night Slash works. Pokemon's got a pretty different playstyle in terms of how it works. Practice it, make sure you're comfortable with it before you spend your $20 on it. Its Unite move feels like a Zeraora Unite, but it just explodes. I mean, it does a lot of burst damage. It doesn't seem very very special, but it's cool. And Illusion, it's passive, it's very fun. I've got a cool clip to show you guys. And I know my time is up, but one last thing on Illusion. It does give you invincibility frames, which you can use every 15 seconds. So this is a very high skill cap Pokemon. People who want to one-trick this and really get nitty-gritty with this Pokemon will be rewarded. I think its design is pretty cool, but still not happy with the monetization strategies. And yeah, check out my videos on all the other characters we talked about. I will be dropping a Crustle video. We've got an Eldegoss video out already. We'll get a Zoroark video out as well. If there's anything else from the patch that you want to see me make a video on, let me know. And let me know in the comments below which Pokemon that you like that didn't get buffed, or a moveset that you like that didn't get buffed. Maybe if we make some noise about it and people start talking about it, those can get buffed as well. Thanks everyone for watching. Have a good one and take care.